Welcome to today's episode of the Insurance, Life, and Everything in Between podcast. My name is Adam Brsan.
And I'm Chris Smith.
If you've yet to do so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode. And if you love this podcast, don't forget to share it with a friend or colleague. We greatly appreciate your help and support. Thanks again for hopping on for the beginning portion of the call. Like I said, we're really trying to do what we can to help agents out there. And I think just our experience out in the field. And I think that's why we like to share a lot of the different things that we go through during the week, because it can really relate to other people out there. And those are sort of things that I think can help everybody. Someone asked me about American Amicable, and he said, how much do you think your production and history with them weighs into getting cases approved? I don't think they really cherry pick, honestly. I think they just base it on it's a case by case basis. Sometimes it might feel that way. Sometimes, there's been cases where I've written that I still think I'll get approved, and they still keep it, return a premium, and they can see more than I can see. So, but no, I don't think that they're approving more for me than somebody else just because I write more business with them or something. I think that it's just a case by case, and they're looking at each case, and it's just a judgment call. You win some, you lose some. But this portion of the training, we're just going to be going through the presentation that I've used for years. I think that having some structure is important. I think going into a home and just winging it isn't the way to go. I think for one thing, when you have a presentation that you can work off of, it keeps you on point. If you're sitting with someone that just won't shut up and they always want to butt in, at least you're able to kind of get back to where you were at, where without a presentation, you could really fall off track and just end up kind of all over the place. And like I said, if you were on the call a few minutes ago, I talked about the one guy that just was just kind of a jerk and just really butting in and just asking me all these off the wall questions and everything. I mean, I think he was purposely trying to get to me to see how I would react. He was like an ex-Marine or something. I don't know. I think he was just trying to play mind games with me. But because I had a presentation, I'm kind of go back to, kind of get me right back to on point and, kind of show him that I'm actually the one here who's in charge. I'm the one who's going to kind of work you guys through this process, and it's not going to be the other way around. But without a presentation, I mean, who knows how that whole thing would have went. I mean, it could have went south pretty quick, where, like I said, I was real close to getting up and leaving, and I didn't. But without a presentation, maybe I would have. But I think it helps to have some structure. If you're building an agency, I think a presentation is super important. You want to have something that you can teach your agents. So when your agents are out selling, their process that they're going through. To me, I feel a whole lot more comfortable with the agents that I work with when I know they know what they're doing and they're doing everything that I've taught them. If they're doing things the way I've taught them, I know they're doing things the right way. And I know that I can feel pretty comfortable about the business that they're writing. So that's why I think it's important to have a presentation. I'm sure you'd agree, Chris.
Yeah, I had to log back out and log back in to get my audio straightened out. It was probably operator error, but that's okay. If you don't know what you're going to say, then guess what happens? The client says all kinds of random stuff and really never becomes your client. If you know what you're going to say, you can control the conversation from start to finish. No different than we have a structure to a call that takes place on a conference call line, on YouTube, on StreamYard, on a set period of time. You got to have structure to what you're doing, or nothing gets done.
So I'm going to go through the presentation that I've used. I'm going to try to breeze through it. I am going to try to hop on a train in about an hour because I'm going to the Cubs game today. You can probably see I've got my stuff on. Cubs Yankees, pretty excited about it. So I am I'm going to try to breeze through this so I can get on the early train. I want to take my little boy and try to get in early so we can watch batting practice and try to get some autographs. So let's go ahead and get started here. So first thing, I always feel like it's important to follow the client's lead. If they walk to the kitchen table, sit down there. If they sit down on the couch, sit down on the couch. I like to sit wherever they feel comfortable. I'm not walking in and saying, can we go sit at the table? To me, I don't know. I just always like to do things different than other people out there. I mean, I remember the first insurance agency when I was 20 years old that I worked with. I actually worked for a Mutual of Omaha office for a few months. It was like a captive sort of deal when I first got licensed. And that was, right away, you ask if you should take your shoes off, talk about the pictures that you see on the wall, ask to sit at the table, all this stuff. And it's like, why does any of that matter? I think it's cheesy. I think it's the same thing that it's the same song and dance that people see all the time. That's the last guy that walked in did the same thing. I want to be different. I honestly, I just want to be me. And that's really how I am in the home. I don't change who I am. I go through the presentation. And now this is one thing I would agree with that I was probably taught way back when. If you're visiting with a husband and wife, be sure they're sitting next to each other or side by side. You don't want to be sitting like in between them. Sometimes it's difficult for them to be able to communicate. Like I could tell the other day that husband and wife that the guy was kind of a jerk. I mean, she just kept giving him the evil eye, but she was sitting right next to him. I mean, I could tell like it kind of got to the point he realized maybe I should just go in the other room now and shut up. So, but if she was, sitting on the other side, I don't know, maybe it would have been a little bit different. It's like they want to be able to communicate amongst one another, but she wanted to kind of say stuff to him that she wouldn't have been able to if I was sitting in between them. Keep the client in their comfort zone. Like I said, if the TV is on and it's loud, I'll ask to turn the volume down, but I'm not going to ask to turn it off. I don't care. I mean, like I said, the client, they're used to conducting business sitting on the couch and with the TV on. So why take them out of their comfort zone? I don't ask to take my shoes off. I mean, don't ask to take your shoes off unless it's raining and they're all muddy or something, or maybe you got 6 inches of snow hanging off them. But outside of that, I mean, if you look good, if your shoes are clean, you just want to stay in charge. Bottom line. And I always say, save the rapport till the end. I don't really get into a whole lot of rapport building. I'm pretty straight and to the point when I get in the house. I'm not heeing and hawing around and asking about the pictures on the wall and stuff like that. Like I said, I just feel like that stuff's kind of cheesy. I kind of look at it as I build rapport by asking questions throughout the presentation that are related to the topic. That kind of puts them in the right mindset of them remembering why this is so important. So that's how I build rapport. So, like I said, bottom line, get to the point. They know why you're there. They sent the thing back. You don't need to he and haw around for 25 minutes, ask them about their grandkids. Just get to the point. And then real quick, just a little commercial. Go over to adambrsan.com to sign up for our future trainings too. That way I can add you to our mailing list. And that way you can hop straight onto our StreamYard, which honestly is probably one of the easiest ways to be able to watch us live on Fridays. So feel free, hop on there, fill out the form, and I'll add you to the list, and we'll be sure to notify you of future trainings and what the topics will be. So my presentation is really made up of questions. Like I said, I like to get the client involved by asking questions that are related to the topic. So I call them closing questions because that's what I'm doing. I'm closing them from the time I walk in until they're signing on the dotted line. So first closing question. So Mary, by sending this card back, have you experienced a funeral lately? And I'm just kind of waiting for her reaction. Maybe she doesn't even know why she sent the thing back, but that's what I want to right then and there. She understands that this is going to be about funerals. If I'm asking her if she'd experienced a funeral lately. So I'm hoping for an answer, a yes, that she had, because then I can ask more questions. So if she says, yes, she had experienced a funeral lately. The next thing I'm going to say, well, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. The next question I'm going to ask, was there insurance involved? If so, was it enough? If there wasn't insurance involved, I'm so sorry to hear that. Did the family have to pitch in? Wow, I'm sure that made things difficult. Again, I'm kind of planting all those seeds to remind the client of why this is so important and why they need this. Uh, and if they say no, that they hadn't experienced a funeral, I usually just say, well, a lot of people we talk to, they had experienced a funeral and it was difficult, and the family sometimes ended up having to pitch in, and I might even bring up like the GoFundMe's and stuff, and just that's just not really the route that people want to have to go, and then I'll just move forward. So then I tell them on this page, I say, well, I'm sure they got you. If they mentioned that they had experienced a funeral, I'll say, I'm sure they got you thinking about this. Well, I'll go over this with you. I'll tell you a little bit about us. We'll go over a few questions and I'll put together some rates and see what you think. And then I move forward. I tell them a little bit about who I am and what we do. Unity Life Group is the name of our agency or company. We go by the Family Legacy Plan. Our main focus is working with companies who have a good track record of paying claims and paying claims quickly. That's just something I feel very strongly about. We want this to serve its purpose. What this means is that if you have a plan with us, when you die, your family will get the money fast. This is very important because most funeral homes want the money up front. So at least you know the money's going to be there for your family when they need it. And sometimes I say, rather than the funeral homes want the money up front, sometimes I just say, the funeral home, they're not waiting for the money. I mean, they want to be paid right then and there. So just really kind of depends on who I'm talking to and the different language I'm using. But like a lot of times I just say, the funeral home, they're not waiting for the money. So we want to make sure that that money is going to be there for your family. We want to make sure this serves its purpose so it's there for them when they need it. And then
Adam,
I just
real quick,
mentioned, yeah. What's up, Chris?
just want to make a real quick comment. I think one of the most powerful things in sales is to recognize if you sell on humor or if you sell on seriousness. It's the Morgan Freeman or Jim Carrey approach to sales. And what you're doing there is the classic credibility statement. And I think that is such a powerful approach to take for agents, even brand new agents. You may have just been in the business a week. This may be your third week in the business, but you've got more credibility than your client because you have a license, a carrier contract. They requested the information. So utilizing the credibility statement is super powerful. Maybe you have a sales, a life story you can share. Maybe you don't like credibility statements, but maybe your grandmother died without insurance and then you had to pay for the funeral. And that's why you got an insurance. If you have a story that led you into this industry or you have a lived experience that would inspire this person to action, share it. So utilize the power of credibility statements, be authentically you. And if something happened in your life that really puts insurance to the forefront of your existence, share it with your potential clients.
Yeah. And Chris, another thing too, I mean, how many people just walk into a home and all they're talking about is face amounts and rates? That's all somebody's talking about. Well, then the next person that walks in, yeah, maybe that's why business is so easy to replace. But very seldom does my business get replaced. I'm making this more like real. I'm making this authentic. I'm making this more than just another policy. And I think, again, I think it's just because of the way I present and I really try to make it hit home with the client. And by the time I'm done, I mean, they just half the time they're giving me a big hug when I leave because I made it authentic. I made it real. And they understand that this is going to be the one that's going to be there to help their family when they need it.
Yeah, when it comes to my presentation on the final expense side, I'm looking to see if there's something that they have that I can improve. If there's something they don't have, get them to the point where they can purchase because some reasons held them up before. And when it comes to the Medicare approach, I just straight up tell them, I'm here to help you save money. I'm here to help you to get more money, improve your benefits. I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm trying to make your life better. And that's really honestly the same approach on either product presentation. When people think you're trying to extract premium from them and you're trying to show them rates and it just sounds like a sales pitch, people don't want to be sold, but everybody wants to buy. That's another key part in sales that when we understand that, we can write more business.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So then, again, then this portion of the presentation. And again, if you want a copy of the presentation, hop on adambrsan.com. You can, or even unitylifegroup.com. You can fill in an inquiry and just send me over a little note. I'd be happy to send you a copy of it. And I'm working on my website where you'll just be able to get in there and download it. It's just not done yet. But anyways, this portion of the presentation, again, it's just kind of giving me a little bit of credibility. I just like to talk a little bit about, we've been in business for 21 years now, since '03. And we've partnered with some of the most financially sound companies in the industry who are in the business to pay claims. I might even mention where some companies are going under. We work with companies that are buying out other companies right now. So we never have to worry about the companies going away. And then we're also able to help about 99% of the people we sit down with. So even those that have had trouble getting coverage in the past, there's a very good chance that we are still able to help them. And this is important because it's something everyone needs. Wouldn't you agree? So I'm just trying to get them to say yes. I'm trying to get them to just start agreeing with me. And yeah, they're going to. What are they going to tell me? No, people don't need this.
I don't agree.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've ever had anybody say, "Well, not really." No, I'm just kind of setting it up for yeah, of course, yeah, everybody needs this. So then we talk about the Social Security death benefit. And I'm sure you know how it works with Social Security. They pay the $255 sometimes if there's a surviving spouse or a dependent child who's in school. And then if neither is the case, no one's getting anything. And that $255 really isn't going to do a whole lot anyways. I mean, the average funeral right now is ranging between about $4,000 and $20,000, with most falling around $12,000. Does that sound accurate to you? So same thing. Now, the reason I ask this question, does that sound accurate to you, is because, remember, I don't like to build a lot of rapport. So a lot of times when I ask that first question at the beginning, by sending this card back, had you experienced a funeral lately? They might not open up to me yet. They might not say yes. They might not want to provide much detail. But then what I found is that by going through things, kind of telling a little bit more about who I am and what we do, their guard starts to come down a little bit. And then when I ask that question, does, funerals range between 4 and 20,000, with most falling right now around 12,000. Does that sound accurate to you? A lot of times that person that told me that they hadn't experienced a funeral at the beginning come back there and tell me, yeah, we ended up having to bury our Uncle Joe about 6 months ago. I think it was like around 11,000. So what does that do? That tells me how much coverage they feel like they're probably going to need. And I like to sell based on the need. I don't want to sell on the want. I want to sell on the need. And if they know that someone they know just paid a certain amount for insurance, or for their funeral, well, then that's what they feel like they're going to need. If anything, I might mention that you got to focus not only on today, but years down the road too, because when I first got in the business, I mean, you could be buried for $6,000 and now it's 2 to 3 times that much. So I might bring that up, but at least they know for right now, if they were to die tomorrow, at least if they have 11,000 that they needed for Uncle Joe, well, then they would at least have enough to cover their funeral right now. I can always go back and write them more down the road. So that's why I asked that question. And that's what that slide says. And this is actually the whole script. Same thing. I can send you a copy of the script as well as the presentation that you can run through. And then the next page of the presentation, this is a breakdown on why funerals cost what they do. I don't need to bore you with all this. You know how it works, but the two main expenses are the casket and the burial vault, which is like the cement that goes in the ground before the casket. I mean, right now, the average cost for a casket's around $2,500, and then that vault's another $1,500. Some people decide that, they'd prefer to be cremated. That's when those expenses would be eliminated. I mean, have you thought about whether you want to be buried or cremated? And same thing. The reason I'm asking that question, I'm focusing on the need. If they tell me they want to be cremated, well, then as you can see on the script here, I am going to mention the different types of methods of cremation services. A direct cremation, no services involved, is going to run usually between about maybe $1,500 and $3,000. A cremation with a memorial service is going to run between about maybe $4,000 and $6,000. And then a cremation with a visitation where they still rent a casket. They still have to prepare the body. They have to embalm the body. After the funeral services, then that person is cremated. Well, I've seen services like that cost at least $6,000, upwards of close to $10,000. So again, I like to focus on the need. So then I might ask them if they mentioned the cremation, have you thought about of those three methods, which way you're considering? And then that's kind of giving me an idea too of about how much coverage I feel like they're going to need to cover their funeral. And then we just move forward. If they say they want to be buried, well, we already talked about how much a burial is going to cost. So then I don't need to go through any of that. We just kind of move forward to the next page. So then the next page is I go through a pre-arrangement guide. The one that I have in the presentation is the one that is provided through American Amicable. You can order it through the supplies. So many different carriers out there have these. And I have several of them from different carriers that just go through their supplies and order some. And most of them aren't even going to charge you for them. But it's a great tool. And again, it makes this more than just about insurance. So that's the next part I go through. One thing that we have noticed is that there's so much more to when someone dies than just the money. And a lot of the time, the family just doesn't want to talk about this ahead of time. A lot of the time, the people bring this up to their family and they avoid it. The kids tell them they don't need it. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And then when the time comes, they wish that their loved ones had something in place. A lot of times they're left clueless with not even really knowing exactly what their loved one who passed away would have wanted done. So that's why we're going to provide you with one of these pre-arrangement guides. It's almost like an instruction manual that you can fill out, you can leave to your loved ones so they know exactly how you want things done. And this is going to make things so much easier on your family when the time comes. And I'm sure they'll really appreciate you taking the time to fill it out. It could also even prevent an argument. So right here, one thing that I did, and I actually updated this, I like to bring up objections before they're brought up, or not even objections, but even like smoke screens, as Chris would say, when people tell you like, well, I don't know, I got to think about this. I got to talk to my kids about it. I don't want to do anything without talking to my kids first. I'm already bringing up to them on this slide what's going to happen when they are going to talk to their kids about it. This is what usually happens. They go to their kids and their kids say, oh, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. You don't need that. So, and I'm getting them really, when I go through it this way, they're usually shaking their head in agreement with me. So then when they bring it up at the end, I can come back and say, well, remember what we talked about earlier? How when people talk to their kids about it, they just tell them, don't worry about it, forget about it. And then they're left with nothing. Well, you don't want that to happen. So that's what, like I said, I like to bring up the smoke screens or the objections in the presentation before they can even provide that to me.
Yeah.
So
it's so important to recognize that there is nothing to object to until there is an offer on the table. I think that's so important because we get this phrase objections so confused from so much garbage final expense training from people that don't actually sell it from the last 10 years. There is nothing to object to until you have shown them something to object to. Anything until that point is either a smoke screen or a sales diversion. And if you allow yourself to be diverted, you're simply handing them the conversational football and giving them control over the presentation. If you fall for a smoke screen, you're going to lose yourself in the presentation. There is nothing to object to until I've said, Miss Johnson, here are the three options that most people pick. Which one works the best for you?
that's it. So, and another thing I like about these planning guides is that again, it separates what I'm doing from what everybody else is doing. Maybe agents might leave it behind. They might not even go through it with them. But I've had people tell me, wow, that's really nice. My other insurance doesn't do that. Like all it is a piece of paper. And
It's
maybe
value.
maybe the company that they have their policy with, maybe they could have actually received one of these things. Maybe they already have a policy with American Amicable for all I know. But like I said, so many of the different carriers have them. They're just useful tools. But like I said, it's separating what I'm doing from what other people are doing out there. And like I said, it really hits home with the client. So, and then I go through it with them. The first page here goes over your personal information, where you were born, where you worked, your family information, pretty much any information that's useful to help your family put an obituary together. And then your funeral request, if the church is involved, if you want like a favorite scripture read, or maybe like a favorite hymn sung. And then there's even a spot for people that may need to be notified. And I always bring up how a lot of times people are forgotten about. Maybe they find out 6 months later because nobody thought to call them at the time. Put people like that down. Let your family know ahead of time to be sure to call those people. At least then those people would have the opportunity to decide what they would like to do. And then the next page, the last part here, just kind of goes over like all your legal documents. If you have a will, where it's located, different insurance policies that you have. And then I always like to put in the comment section here, I always like to put my name and my phone number. So then when you're done filling this out, give it to your loved ones and just let them know that when that time comes, the first thing they need to do is call me, have them call Adam, even before the funeral home. And the reason I say that, Mary, is that when your family calls the funeral home, the first thing that funeral home is going to ask about is your policy. And they're going to tell your family, bring in the policy. We'll take a look at it. We'll see what we can do. And really, they just want to see how much money that they're working with. And unfortunately, a lot of times the funeral home will tend to try to use up as much of that money as they can. And, I'll even mention, I've seen situations where the funeral home uses up all the money and then the family's got to still figure out how to pay the cemetery. So we're talking about separate expenses here. There's the funeral home, there's a cemetery, there might be like a repast, like a luncheon afterwards. I mean, that's all additional expense. We want to make sure that this serves all of those purposes and not just the funeral home. So yeah, when your family calls me, we'll get the claim process started. And then what we do is we can either overnight a check to them or we can deposit that money directly into their bank account. So within about 24 to 48 hours, your family, they're going to have that money. And at least it's going to be there for them when they need it. And that's what's important. I mean, that's why you're doing this. This is for them. You're doing this for your family. And then I just kind of move on to the next. And like I said, right there, same thing. When I mentioned that about the funeral home, they're like in total agreement. Like they've been through it before. And it's like whatever, everything I'm saying is actually very accurate. They're like, yeah, that's the first thing they always ask about. And then they try to use it all up. So, and that's what we don't want to happen. So I go through that with them, let them know, we'll send that money straight to your family. When the funeral home asks about the policy, all your family's got to have to tell them is, what, we got that part handled. The money's on its way. As soon as we get paid, you guys will get paid. So, and then I just kind of go through, basically the highlights. And it's funny, this portion, it's kind of similar to like things you see on TV, but everything we talked about, it's all done with permanent whole life protection. What that means is that once it starts, you're covered forever. It's not one of those term policies that could expire before you do. This is one that, like I say, it's like your forever plan. It'll be there forever. The benefit never decreases. The premium will never go up. And then I'll mention, how some companies, they might start you really low just to get you in. And then every few years, they'll raise that rate where it could get to the point where you can't afford it anymore. We want to make sure that you can always handle this. So basically the way this starts is the way that it's going to finish. There's no surprises. The policy can never be canceled due to your age changing or due to your health changing. The only way you'll get canceled is if you don't keep up with it. And you are fully protected from the very first day that the policy goes into effect. We try our best to get people covered right away. There's no medical exam. We're not sending people out to take your blood, make you pee in a cup or anything like that. There's just a couple health questions and that's about it. The next thing I ask them, so would you say you're in pretty good health? That's it. I mean, they might have 20 medications sitting on the table and I still ask that question. Would you say you're in pretty good health? And they might either say yes or no, I'm not. And then the next thing I ask them, usually when I ask them if they're in pretty good health, they're just going to start talking about their health. They'll tell me stuff and I'm just going to write it down. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them about their medications. So much of what we do is based off of the medications that the people are taking. So, they might think that they're in very good health. They might just think that they're taking something for blood pressure when they're actually taking like a heart medication. That's going to be a big difference in your selection of products. So that's where it's important to be thorough and ask those questions. If you're not asking about the medications, that's a good reason why maybe when you're writing a piece of business, it's going to come back completely different than what you're anticipating. So ask about the medications, write them down. And then from there, usually what I do, depending on the situation, I mean, if they're taking multiple meds, that's usually when I'm going to hop into the toolkit and I'm going to plug in their information and then kind of figure out what the best available options would be. If it's a situation where they're maybe just taking like some blood pressure medications, well, then I'm going to lead with like my primary carrier that I know will cover them first day, and hope for the best. And usually it tends to work out pretty well. Most of the time, my clients are pretty upfront with me, but sometimes you just never know. Sometimes there's stuff in the background that maybe they're just not telling you about, or maybe they forgot about some medication. I ran across COVID medications even that'll push them to modified sometimes with certain companies that they just forgot it was just something that they took for 4 days or something. But so that's again why it's just important to be thorough. And even after I go through the medication, I might even ask, is there anything else that you can think of? Like maybe you're not taking it now that maybe you were taking like within the last couple of years. Is there anything else that maybe that you were taking that your doctor took you off of? Because any of that's going to pop up. So like I said, the more thorough you are, the better. And the better, the higher the likelihood that that piece of business will get issued the way that you're assuming that it should, which makes your life a heck of a lot easier with, I mean, it sucks when you write an app and then it comes back one way and then you're either having to try to conserve it with that carrier or having to switch gears and then you got to fill out a whole nother application with another company. Then you're in the house for 2 hours. So do the job up front and it's going to prevent a lot of that. I'm sure you would agree, Chris.
Yeah, the longer you're in the home after that 45-minute mark, your credibility meter continues to decrease exponentially. And you don't even know it until you've been doing this for years and years and years. But people can only digest 45 minutes of information before their brain shuts off. That's why we're trying to keep these right at that 1 hour mark and give a few minutes to Q&A if necessary, because your brain's full. Ours is too. And then the longer you stay in the home, the less they trust you, the less you look like you know what you're doing. And the more, as soon as you leave, they're going to say to each other, Adam, that guy was an idiot, and I'm totally going to put a stop payment on this as soon as he leaves. And that happens if you don't know, if you don't look what you know what you're doing.
Yeah, if you're like shuffling around and just trying to figure things out, and even like the different logins for like the different
Oh my
carriers and
God.
stuff.
Oh, come on. You're like,
Yeah,
be a professional. Know how to log into the
yeah,
website.
yeah. I mean, I could see a lot of that. If you're shuffling around and having trouble and stuff, and it looks like it's the first app you've ever written.
Mhm.
And
Now, if it is, look like you're
yeah,
working really hard. Like part of this
yeah,
presentation is literally a stage presentation. Man, Adam, I got to work. Whew, this is all these new medications came up you hadn't mentioned before. Okay, no big deal. Like, don't look like you're panicked and you can't figure out how to
yeah.
log into American Amicable's website. Take a deep breath. They're not going anywhere. You need to go somewhere pretty soon, but don't look like you don't know what you're doing.
And then from there, like I said, I kind of figure out the best options to go. And then the next thing I'm going to ask them, do you have any coverage now? Like I said, I'm focusing on the need. And like I said earlier, I like to focus on if I got to make this different than anything else they already have. That also helps me in the decision of the carrier that I'm going to use. As I mentioned, I wrote like that American Amicable Platinum product this week, last night, just because I knew that was something that would add a lot of value to somebody that really cares about kind of having all of their funeral arrangements put together ahead of time. So, I'm gonna figure out a way to make this make sense to them, regardless of if they already have any coverage or not. I'm gonna figure out a way to make this different. But like I said, that also helps me to figure out which carrier to use in some scenarios. So if they say they already have coverage now, great. So you're just looking to add to what you have if affordable. I'm shaking my head yes, and then they're going to shake their head yes too. If they say no, that they don't have any coverage now, I make them, as it says here in red, make them feel like they're the last person in the world who doesn't have a policy. Wow, no wonder you contacted us then. This is important. And that's exactly how I say it. Like, I'm not making this up. That's how I do it in the home. You make them feel like they're the last person in the world who doesn't have coverage. And why would they want to go another day without having anything, especially if they can get it today? So, next, I'm going to talk about affordability. And at that point, I kind of know the rates that I put together, and I know like the most expensive one. And I kind of do like Chris. I know you kind of do the same thing, where you kind of like to focus like around $50 a month, 75, and like 100 a month. So that's kind of where I go. I might ask them about affordability. Affordability is important. You want this to be there for your family when they need it, and if you don't keep up with it, it's not going to be. So have you thought about affordability monthly? I might say, is $90 to $100 a month affordable, or is that outrageous? Oh, that's just way too high. All right, how about 80 to 90? How about 70 to 80? Sooner or later, they'll tell me, what's affordable. So then, if I got to start there, that's where I'll start. Okay, so $50 to $60 a month is affordable. Okay, so then that's where I'm going to put together some rates that are kind of within that price range, if that's what they told me that they can afford. And what I'm doing there, I am overcoming the objection before it comes up of everything sounds good, but I just don't think I can afford it. I'm figuring out what they can afford before I even put the rate together. So they can't come back and tell me, well, I just can't afford it. So then, yeah, then I'll put together the rates. Like I said, maybe one for 50. Maybe I'll still do the one for 75 and 100, because sometimes maybe they told me all they can handle is 50, but then when they see how much coverage that they can get for 75, all of a sudden it becomes more affordable. And they're willing to maybe figure out a way to make it happen. So yeah, I still like to kind of stick with like the 50, 75, and 100. And if they still want to go with the cheapest one, that's 50, great. If they want to do a little bit more, that's fine too. So in this scenario, let's just say, so then a $10,000 plan is going to run $50 a month. And I'm writing that down as I'm talking to them. Uh, and I'm just honestly, I'm just waiting for their reaction. If they don't say anything, then I'm going to put another rate together. If they say something like, well, that sounds good, whatever, to me, I just sold it. And the next thing I'm going to ask them is, who's your beneficiary going to be? Like, if they say any sort of buying response, I'm not going to even give them another quote. I'm not going to give them anything to have to think about. If they say that sounds good, all right, well, who's your beneficiary going to be? I move forward with filling out the application. If they don't say anything, if I say, 10,000 is going to be $50 a month, and they're just kind of sitting there, well, then 12,500, that's going to run $70 a month, whatever. Probably not that much, but it's going to run $70 a month. If they still don't say anything, 15,000 is going to run 100 a month, depending on their age. And then from there, if they still haven't said anything, then the next thing I say is, I'll let you tell me what's affordable. And I'll put the quotes in front of them. And as I have on my script here, just sit there and shut up. Don't say anything. First one to talk loses. And that's it. You could talk yourself right out of a sale too. So sit there, let them figure out what's affordable. They're going to come up with their decision and make them be the next one to talk. Okay. And that's it. From there, who's your beneficiary going to be?
Yeah, active listening means that you as the salesperson need to shut up. Like, you can't listening is not waiting for your turn to talk. It's actually hearing what they're saying, observing what it means, digesting it, going further into the conversation. It's that conversational football that's happening again. And like Adam said, as soon as they've picked an option, you have to immediately reassign it to that beneficiary. They've picked out who it's for or what they're getting. Now they need to remember in this moment who it's for again. So important. And if you need a transitional statement to get your iPad out, get you settled, and get you moving, Adam, I like the phrase, go ahead and grab your ID for me just so I can tell them that I saw it while I get everything set up. And that gives me a moment of composure to transition into the application once I know they've picked their option.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, usually like I'll ask them who their beneficiary is going to be. I'm just writing it down on my iPad.
Mm-hmm.
I might even just ask them a few questions before I even get to the app. I might be logging in while I'm filling out stuff, just writing it down, what's your middle initial, just little things like that. And then when I get on the e-app or whatever, I kind of just start filling everything in. But yeah, I've had people talk themselves right out of sales. I remember training a guy once and he was doing the presentation and he said, kind of like what I said, I'll let you tell me what's affordable. And they're like, I think the 12,000 would be affordable. And then he says something like, all right, so are you sure you can handle that? And like, it opened it back up to make them thinking like, oh my, I don't know. I don't know if I can handle it or not. And I think I ended up having to like jump in and like save it for him. But yeah, you could talk yourself right out of a sale. Like they make their decision. It's time to move forward. And the way I do that,
Yeah.
who's your beneficiary going to be? And just start
Hmm.
filling out the app. So then
It's
from
got to be
there,
assumptive. Got to be assumptive.
like I said, from there, yeah, we just kind of go through the e-app, the next thing, the bank info. And I keep it very simple. All I say is this is on a bank draft. What's a good date? That's another one where I've seen agents over explain. People know how it works. Most people's bills are set up that way these days. The only time I say something here is if I say this is on a bank draft, what's a good date? And they say, I think the 15th would be good. Then I'm usually going to ask them, okay, well, do you get paid on the second Wednesday of the month? Because that's probably what they're thinking. Or if they say the 5th of the month, I might ask them, do you get paid on the 1st or do you get paid on the 3rd? I want to set this to coincide with their social security dates. So, so that's really the main thing. That really will help with your persistency as well. So don't over explain it. But if they give you a date outside of just like a social security day, well, then bring that up and be sure to set it up to coincide with their social security deposit days. And then from there, just ask for referrals. You may, this is how I do it. You may wonder how I get paid. I kind of look at it as I just help them with something and they're happy that I was able to help them. And sometimes if they feel like I'm actually going to get something out of it, they're more willing to help me. So I say, you might wonder how I get paid. Well, I get paid two ways. One, most importantly, with you taking out this policy, yes, I do earn a commission based on you keeping this policy in force. So please be serious about your decision today. And then second, I get paid by you giving me names of 5 people who you think might be interested in what we talked about today. I'm not talking about 5 people that will buy insurance, just 5 people you think may be interested in what we talked about. And that's it. So they think I'm going to get paid just by them giving me names. But that's how I do it. I know there's so many different ways. I know there's people probably even way better than I am at getting referrals. But the bottom line, you're not going to get a referral unless you ask. That's the only price for a referral is that you have to ask for it. So, and so many times we are in the home, it's like we're all excited. We just made a sale that we're jumping up out of our chair and we're running out of the house. And then we get back to the car and it's like, oh shoot, I probably should have asked them for some referrals. So be sure to ask people that we're helping. They know many other people that are in the same scenario that need our help. And I've walked into so much garbage in people's homes when they hand me their policies, stuff that probably should have never been written. Us as the agents that are out there trying to do stuff the right way, we need to be able to help more people to make sure that more people are set up properly. So you're doing a good thing really for your client and their community by asking for referrals to making sure that you can set up people properly. So, and then only other thing, don't forget to bring up the modified death benefit if it is a modified. There's different ways to do it. I don't bring it up until after the fact. I wrote the app, everything's done, the whole thing's signed, it's all submitted. That's when I bring it up. It's a lot harder for them to come back and say I changed my mind after the whole thing's done. I've even walked into homes where people, I don't want nothing if it's got one of those 2-year waiting periods on it. And then they're a modified death benefit and I write it up and then I explain it at the end and they're just like, oh, okay. So it's like do it after the fact and you're going to come out much better. And I make a big deal out of their health. Because of your heart issue that, like I told you, most companies aren't even going to take you. We just want to make sure that you live a couple years. What that means is that if something happens to you within the first couple of years, due to natural causes, your family, they're going to get back every penny that you gave us plus 10% interest. That's better than it was just put into some sort of risky stock or a bank account that's not earning anything. So the good news is that you don't lose a dime by funding this policy, and you're going to live more than a couple years anyways. And a lot of times they even talk about the fact that time goes by so fast anyways. Like I'll mention like right now, heck, it's already September. I feel like we were just celebrating New Year's. So, I mean, time goes by so fast anyways, but you want to get that clock started right now anyways, because the longer you put it off, you're just delaying that clock from getting started. So, but like I said, usually when I present it this way, I don't think I've ever had somebody come back and change their mind and tell me, no, I don't want it. I bring it up. I just bring it up after I wrote it. I still told them about it. I think legally, you need to be telling the client about it. So I do just after the fact. And from there, it seems to work out pretty well.
Only difference I make is if I'm in a situation where I'm describing a modified or graded or a guaranteed issue plan, I use the word months. Months seems more consumer friendly and digestible. 24 months, 36 months. I mean, there's 6, 7, 8 year car loans at this point, which is obscene, but they describe them as months. So it really doesn't seem all that long. I just prefer months as it sounds nicer to them.
Yeah. And I think I need to update on the script, because that's something too that I feel like I probably say that more often than years too, because they hear that too often. And one thing, I never use the term waiting period.
They're not waiting.
I mean,
they're covered for accidental.
I've heard agents say that too. We're able to get you covered, but there's going to be a 2-year waiting period. Like that's a negative way of putting it. It's like a put off. And that's probably why they're walking out without a sale. So it's so much of this is just how you present it. So, and if you're not part of the group, reach out to me. You can go to unitylifegroup.com/careers. We got lots of good opportunities here when it comes to in-home sales, telesales. We have several different options when it comes to different lead programs that are available. I mean, heck, you're on the training right now. So much different trainings and ongoing support. We got the daily phone call that Chris does such a good job with. I help out once in a while on it, like this morning. So many different opportunities to build a team, working with multiple carriers, several options available when it comes to that. And even if you're looking to build a team, I mean, we have several high-level contracts available to give you room even to put some agents under you. So lots of good stuff. Feel free to check out my website, adambrsan.com. I'm still in the process of kind of updating the training, but you can also check out the YouTube, and also go to, you can go to my channel, where you can just Google my name or search in YouTube, Adam Brsan. You can also go to the Insurance Life and Everything in Between YouTube channel that we are also streaming live on right now. And don't forget the podcast. We have the podcast in video and also audio formats. Check it out on Apple, Spotify, and all these other ones that I forget the names of. So thanks again for checking us out today and hopping on the training. Anything you want to add, Chris, before we sign off this morning?
No, just appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you subscribe to whatever method you're watching us on. Make sure if you're off of StreamYard or you're watching this on Facebook, you're seeing this on YouTube, I need a favor. I need you to drop a comment below so that this is shown to more people. We have a lot of great views. We have a lot of great subscribers, but we need more comments. So if you're watching this off of StreamYard at any point between now and the end of civilization, drop us a comment and go out there and make some money today. Don't let the world get ahead of you. Get in front of people. Help them with what they know that they need. And if you don't know what to do, reach out and we'll be there to help you.
Sounds good. I'm going to go try to reach my train. I got 20 minutes.
You got it.
See you guys. And this concludes another episode of the Insurance Life and Everything in Between podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, share with a friend or colleague. And if you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, please leave those too. Any input is greatly appreciated. Thank you.